guided, be inspired, be blessed. Listen to our campus ministers on air. Radyo Katipunan, 87.9 FM.
The hottest tracks from this side of the globe. This is Amplify Asia on Radyo Katipunan 87.9 FM.
Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ear.
Do you long for a good spiritual read? Or for literature that not only feeds the mind, but nourishes the soul as well? Do you want to be inspired, feel positive and hopeful about life? Then read The Windhover, the official magazine of the Jesuits in the Philippines. Written by Jesuits and their lay partners, The Windhover features real stories about the Jesuits and their various ministries. Be inspired. Be blessed. Subscribe to The Windhover. For inquiries, call the Philippine Jesuit Aid Association at telephone numbers 426-6001, locals 4890 or 4892. Once again, Philippine Jesuit Aid Association, telephone numbers 426-6001, locals 4890 or 4892.
Radyo, 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 Katipunan. Radyo, 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 Katipunan. Radyo, 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 Katipunan. Radyo, Katipunan.
Coming up next, Wellness Wednesdays on Radyo Katipunan 87.9 FM.
Radyo Katipunan.
Radyo, 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 Katipunan. Radyo Katipunan. Radyo Katipunan.
Pagbabalitang paatama. Buhay Atenista, sa loob sa labas ng eskwela, ating ilinida lahat ng eskwela. Radyo, 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 Katipunan. Radyo, 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 Katipunan. Radyo, Katipunan. Katipunero, sugod, todo sa kayo, tulong at tulong, lipat na buigil, kating-kiting nagkikinig, and fight, one big fight. Radyo, 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 Katipunan. Radyo, 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 Katipunan. Radyo, Katipunan.
We all want to live healthier in mind, body, and spirit. But where do we start? Sometimes, all it takes is a good conversation. Tune in to Wellness Wednesdays on Radyo Katipunan 87.9 FM. Together with experts, inspiring guests, and real stories, we explore tips you can actually use. From managing stress, to eating better, to finding balance in a busy world. Because here, we believe wellness isn't just about living longer, it's about living better. So join us, and let's make every Wednesday a step toward your healthiest self. Wellness Wednesdays, wellness that speaks to you. From the body, mind, to might. Every Wednesday on Radyo Katipunan 87.9 FM.
Hello, Ate Ateneo.
Hello, Katipunan.
And hello, Universe. Welcome back to another episode of Wellness Wednesdays, your midweek dose of balance and positivity.
Here on Radyo Katipunan 87.9 FM, we bring you wellness that speaks to you. From the body, mind to mic. Every week we explore tips, conversations, and stories that help keep your mind, body, and spirit in harmony.
It's your Sunshine Smile certified mic eater bringing bona fide Bisaya pride. I'm Aina Taha from 2BS Psychology.
And it's your Kikay Pink girly from 2BS Psychology, Gwen. Sit back, take a deep breath, and join us as we dive into today's topic designed to keep you grounded and inspired only here on Wellness Wednesdays. You can catch our program live on Radyo Katipunan 87.9 FM via traditional radio if you are around Katipunan Avenue. We are also on audio streaming via zeno.fm/radio/RK879FM and via live streaming on the Facebook and YouTube pages of Radyo Katipunan.
And if you want updates about our program, do follow us on social media at Radyo Katipunan 87.9 FM on Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok.
Since it's April and the heat is on, today's episode is titled Uniquely You, Amplifying Neurodiverse Voices. And just like the rising temperature, conversations around autism and neurodiversity are heating up. They're gaining attention, sparking dialogue, and calling for deeper understanding. April 2, marked as the World Autism Awareness Day, is a global reminder for us to not just raise awareness, but to move toward acceptance and inclusion for individuals on the spectrum.
That's right, Gwen. And while we all feel the summer heat in different ways, it's a good reminder that people also experience the world differently, especially individuals who are neurodiverse. For some, what may feel like a normal day to us can already be overwhelming for others.
At the end of the day, neurodiversity isn't about limitations. It's about recognizing different ways of thinking, feeling, and experiencing the world.
And just like every shade adds to the beauty of a spectrum, every individual brings somewhat meaningful to our shared community. So in today's episode, we shine a light on those voices, amplifying stories, strengths, and perspectives that deserve to be heard.
Joining us today for Wellness Wednesday is Miss Lai Solomon, a licensed psychologist at Ateneo, Bulatao Psychological Services. She works with neurodivergent teens and adults, particularly those with ADHD and autism, and tailors her approach to each client's unique needs. Her practice is grounded in building strong, therapeutic relationships and uses neurodivergent affirming, emotion-focused, trauma-informed, and psychodynamic approaches. She also specializes in addressing anxiety, stress, and burnout.
Welcome to Wellness Wednesday, Miss Lai.
Hi, thank you for having me. This is my first radio guesting ever, so I'm a little nervous, but I'm happy to be here.
Okay, so just to start things off, let's begin with a little icebreaker. So since it's so hot these days, what's a personal way of staying cool or comfortable? I can go first. I just love ice cream. Okay, you can go next.
Yeah, same with me. Ice cream, anything iced, sa drinks, sa food. But also for me, relaxing. Kasi when I get stressed, I warm up. And so I have to be more mindful of my emotions.
For me naman, ako, ma-review yung pagkagastador ko. I go to cafes. I order iced coffee. Like, except from, locking in during the final season. Parang way ko na rin yun to seek comfort. Kasi diba, comfort looks different for everyone. And we have different ways to relax, especially with this excruciating heat that we have right now.
Right. So as we observe World Autism Day this April, we begin by centering what this episode is all about: understanding autism and embracing neurodiversity.
Yes, building awareness that goes beyond definitions toward deeper understanding, acceptance, and inclusion of individuals on the autism spectrum and the wider neurodiverse community. So, let's start this off with the first question. Could you help us understand better what autism is?
Okay, so before I answer that, I also want to acknowledge first that I'm speaking from my own training and own professional experience as a therapist. Kasi I'm only one perspective, and autism is very broad and is a very deeply individual experience. And no one person can fully represent talaga what it means to have autism and yung diversity of the whole spectrum. So I will share what I can and what I know, but I don't know everything. And there's always more for me to learn. So to try and simply explain what autism is, it's a complex, lifelong neurodevelopmental condition. So dun muna, neurodevelopmental meaning it began in childhood. Even if it's not that evident, it's something that you are born with. And it also has or talks about yung differences in brain structure and thinking processes. So, in general, autism is characterized by persistent challenges in social communications and interactions. There's also restricted interests and activities and repetitive behavior. So, very general, but I would say also very comprehensive because I don't think we can cover all the nuances in this hour, but I think as we talk more about it later, I could share more specific characteristics about it. But I also want to highlight that whatever we get to talk about today, treat it as a way to increase our understanding of people with autism and not to diagnose yourselves or others kasi may other opportunities then for that. And most importantly, what autism is that it's not a disease, it's not an illness that we treat. It's just a different way that the brain is wired. So it means it also comes with both strengths and challenges for people with autism.
All right. Thank you so much for letting us know the basics of autism. No? So, what does it mean when we say that autism is a spectrum?
Well, autism is a spectrum, so it is experienced very differently by each one. So, of course, there's a criteria to be met through the DSM. I won't go through it here, but even if you check, you will notice na may parts there that would list down possible different characteristics, but even they would say you only need to meet like a minimum number, not all. So parang even from there, you will see na no two individuals can experience it differently. Kahit pa sabihin natin na for whatever reason, they have the exact same set based on the criteria. But it would be a totally different experience. So I could give some examples for that. So one way is that, for example, sa level of support, that's part of the diagnosis. May level 1, level 2, level 3, and that means yun yung level of support that people with autism might need. So it could mean na some people would need help from adults or mental professionals until later in life, while some naman could lead relatively more independent life, and some are in between those things. So even dun pa lang. And then, for example, what we usually know about autism, sensory sensitivities, right? But even that could be different. Like, for example, yung texture of wool. For person A, that could be the feeling that they hate, texture that they hate. While for some, it could be like the safe texture for them, yun yung comfort for them. And that's the same for food. That's the same for sound, for taste, all those things. Other common things that we notice, yung changes or difficulties with changes with routine or rigidity with routine. Some, manonotice natin yun, one change that could be very difficult for them. But I'm sure there will also be other people for many different factors that would be okay or more tolerant of changes like that. May changes din sa cognitive abilities kasi kahit neurotypicals naman, di ba, iba-iba naman tayo ng cognitive abilities. So, even for that, I have heard people, clients, or friends say na before they didn't know na they had autism kasi ano ba yung TV representations usually, di ba, yung mga may savant abilities, pero hindi naman yun lang yung one way of being or having autism. And then siguro lastly is yung differences also sa experiences ng men and women. Kasi from the start naman, parang the earliest studies talaga were centered around boys and men. So yung descriptions, characteristics, mas yun yung nakikita. So for women, may studies din na they have a high risk for being underdiagnosed or misdiagnosed kasi it could either be how their autism looks different or yung parang how society expects them or ano yung behaviors that are expected to be normative are also different. And men and women pa lang yun. Wala pa yung autism for people who are part of the LGBTQ community. So, ang daming, it's a whole spectrum and so many different ways that it could show up.
Thank you so much for that. Especially, I really liked what you said na parang iba-iba po yung itsura ng autism in different individuals. And that helps for us to not generalize generalize these people. So, how does autism intersect with mental health, especially among young people?
So, we're going to go back dun sa different way that the brain is wired, right? And so, ano ba yung brain, di ba? It affects all areas of our life or functioning. And so, if my differences in those areas, it means there are also effects on every part of each person's life. So it's not necessarily negative effects, but just differences in general. And then let's put into context what you said, yung younger years or for young people. Diba during this time, for us, kasama ko, you have to interact with different kinds of people and meet different demands and expectations, either from school or if you're working or even from family. So, ang daming nangyayari during this time. And yung developmental milestones here also include developing your self-identity, your self-image. Ito rin yung time that we long to create meaningful connections with people and find belongingness. So if there are difficulties reaching those milestones, and then let's add pa if they're not getting yung environment or support that they need, or they don't have yung mental health support for it, then there's a high chance of struggling with mental health conditions. So here are some. It's not all, again, can't cover everything, but some common ones. Kunwari, let's paint a picture. For example, for anxiety. Anxiety can arise due to very unpredictable environments and ever-changing things happening. Parang marami na in general na nangyari in this age group. And then let's add everything that have happened since the pandemic. All those many unpredictable things. And so for someone na kailangan ganito strict sa things that are happening, that's so difficult. And then let's add pa yung struggling with social interactions. So how people with autism usually describe it, or how I've heard it before, is that it feels like it feels for them na neurotypicals were given like a rule book na andun lahat yung unspoken rules of the society na parang one glance and they know what's expected of them, what they should say, what's okay and not okay. But for them, it's like they have to learn by trial and error. Or unless someone told them explicitly, oh, this is what you have to do or not to do. That's so difficult. Parang everything is like a minefield na something could go off. So that can lead to anxiety. And then there's also depression. So, for example, in difficulty with social cues, communicating their thoughts and emotions. So that could lead to being misinterpreted or being misunderstood, which could lead to difficulty initiating or maintaining friendships. And so imagine there's a life challenge that they're facing, and then they're isolated pa, no support system. And so that could lead to helplessness, that could lead to depression. Wala pa din yung emotion regulation, the executive functioning that could affect how they see themselves, yung confidence, yung self-esteem. And there's also higher risk for burnout for neurodivergent individuals. Parang zeroing in on autism, yung, for example, sensory sensitivities. Ang daming ganun throughout the day, that can make just daily functioning overwhelming. And all the interactions, again, they're always on. They're always ready and scanning. And then let's add pa something that we call masking. So for neurodivergent individuals, it's when you learn how to act or behave in the way that society expects you to, even if it goes against your nature. So syempre, they have to do it sometimes to get what they are trying to have in life, but that takes up a lot of mental and cognitive energy, emotional energy. So, parang ang daming kailangan gawin just to function in a world that's not designed for them. So, there's so many ways that that can happen, and it feels heavy, but also, I want to highlight naman na if they have yung environment and support that they need, then hindi naman lahat ganon. A lot of people then have managed to navigate those situations or be regulated. And on the other hand, hindi lang siya difficulties also when it comes to mental health. There are also strengths and positive experiences that they can get. So for example, due to people with autism usually have hyperfixation. So yun yung mga special interests nila. That means they could be the greatest experts at those interests, at their fields. Kasi they would do everything they can just to learn everything about it. They're very passionate about those things. Meron din, in an attempt to compensate for social difficulties, talagang they research, they study about it, they analyze interactions and conversations, and can end up actually being good at reading people, at reading the room. Due to these possible difficulties then, they have learned to be resilient and how to bounce back kasi they don't have a choice. And so, that gives them sometimes a deeper understanding and compassion towards others. So, some of the people I know with autism have the kindest hearts, na they're so understanding when someone hurts their feelings or is struggling with something kasi they have been there. And they have also learned how to be aggressively compassionate and accepting of themselves. Na, okay, I know ito yung things that I like even if no one else likes it. Na ito yung way to calm myself down even if people might judge me from it. Pero they learn that they sometimes have to give that acceptance towards themselves kasi they might not get it from others. So, ayun, there are many different aspects and ways that it can go.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mom, for giving us like a general overview of what autism actually is. So moving on to our next segment. From understanding the basics of autism and neurodiversity, we now look at how these experiences extend into everyday life, especially when it comes to mental health and well-being.
Because understanding neurodiversity is not just about definitions or awareness. It's also about recognizing how these differences shape how individuals experience emotions, stress, relationships, and the world around them.
And more importantly, how these experiences are also shaped by external factors, like how society treats them, the level of acceptance they receive, and whether they are supported or misunderstood in their environments.
So for the first question, how does neurodiversity influence a person's emotional experiences, stress responses, and ways of interacting with others?
I think for this part, this is something that is kind of touched on na rin earlier, yung sa emotional responses. So, siguro ang madadagdag ko na lang from the previous answer is that there are studies also that show na it is harder for people with autism to regulate their emotions. Parang they also, yung sa sensory sensitivities, parang for us, diba, there are things that we don't like, pero for them, they can feel it physically then, yung discomfort with it. So, yun, with the high risk of burnout and overwhelm, often they would want to go into their safe spaces, to be alone, to feel safe again, kasi there are so many stimuli or possible stressors around them. So, often they want to be alone. But, ayun, once they find their people naman, they can be very sociable individuals. Pero yun nga, very important yung what feels safe for them.
Okay, so to expound more on that, kasi I feel like, as you mentioned earlier, in media, these kinds of people are represented in a major wrong manner, no? There are still many misconceptions about autism. So from your perspective, what are some of the most common misunderstandings that need to be corrected?
Siguro yung first, I kind of talked about it already, pero I want to highlight yung autism does not need to be cured. So, for example, there could be individuals with autism who are medicated. But that's not to treat autism. Sometimes it helps them it helps stabilize their mood, especially yun nga if meron ganong may emotional difficulties or comorbidities, yun yung mga things that could get treated. But not autism itself. And so, for example, in therapy, I may work with clients on those emotional difficulties mentioned, but we are not trying to get rid of their characteristics. So, for example, yun nga, if meron silang sensory sensitivity, hindi natin sila gagawin na parang, exposure therapy until you're okay with it. It's not how it works. So what we do is, okay, how can we navigate this? How can we help you reach your goals and yung mga kailangan mo gawin, knowing that this is a problem? Like, could we use specific kinds of earbuds? Parang if sound earbuds na designed talaga for neurodivergent people, or how can we have a safe space for your things that can make you feel safe or calm when you're outside, when you're school, when you're someplace na you have to function. Now, when you have to mask in school, do you have the space to unmask after, where you're surrounded by people who can accept you and you can just stim or do whatever you want the rest during the day? So yun, it's not something that we cure. It's something that we accept. We work with our neurodivergent brain.
Okay, so it's really great to hear these misconceptions being debunked, no? So that moves us to our next segment. So as we continue to reflect on how neurodiversity is experienced in everyday life, we move into a short segment that helps us take a closer look at our words, assumptions, and responses in real-world situations.
In this segment, we will present several scenarios that may involve interactions with neurodiverse individuals. Your task is to reflect on each one and consider whether the response or action can be seen as helpful or harmful in terms of understanding, inclusion, and mental well-being.
And when something is identified as potentially harmful, we will not stop at that point. We will also explore how it can be reframed into a more supportive, respectful, and inclusive approach.
So with that, let's begin. So for this scenario, in a classroom setting, a student consistently contributes high-quality written work for group projects but rarely speaks during group discussions. A group member says, they're still contributing, so there's no need to encourage them to speak more in group discussions.
Okay. Before I answer that, I'm curious about what you think about that scenario. Do you think that's inclusive? That's okay?
I think, yeah, on some level it is, but to the point now, like, we don't ignore or not give them tasks in the group per se. I feel like it's good to also, especially if you're close to that person, you can sort of gauge like what tasks they're comfortable with, what they can do. That's what I learned lang from experience from friends and relatives also.
Yeah. So I agree with that. Parang may part there that's so nice na, they're contributing naman. We don't have to force them to speak. Which is, I think that's the key. We don't have to force. But part of inclusion also is that you give them equal opportunities. So, okay, ayaw niya masyadong magsalita, then that's okay. But you can give them opportunities to contribute. You can ask naman, like, you don't force, but you can ask, usually for individuals with autism, specificity is helpful. So instead of, what do you think? Parang, okay, what do I think? I'm thinking right now, ang init. But if you ask na, what do you agree with our current direction, or do you have something to add? Do you have questions that can be helpful? Kasi minsan they also just don't know when to parang butt in or like say something unless asked. Or yun, baka hindi sila comfortable, baka they want to answer via chat or via group chat instead of in person. But you don't decide for them, diba? Na, hindi naman na siya nagsasalita. So, wala na. You ask them kung ano yung gusto nila.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Okay, so that leads us to scenario 2. In a workplace, a colleague performs better when instructions are given in written form rather than verbally during meetings. A teammate responds, okay, I'll send everything through chat so we don't need to explain it verbally anymore. Helpful or harmful?
I think it's also complex again. It's good na may form of accommodation na, I'm going to send it via chat. And just yung recognizing na parang, mas nahirapan siya if verbal, so send ko via chat. So that's helpful. But at the same time, we don't know, maybe na-appreciate pala ng person with autism to also still hear it verbally, na maybe gusto niya, okay, send it through chat, and then can we discuss it after? And so, again, yung asking them for what they prefer, for what they want, parang having that conversation with them is so important. But I also want to highlight, hindi lahat ng workplaces ganon that will be like, oh, I would write this down for you. So if all are like that, not even just for people who are neurodivergent, that's so helpful, diba?
Actually, for me din po, when I first read this, parang naisip ko po, parang I quite didn't like how it was phrased. Parang sabi, okay, medyo may inclusion na sa, I'll send everything through chat. Parang, I think the second part of the sentence needs to be cut off. Na parang pinaparamdam na, hindi ko dapat to explain sa'yo verbally. Parang pinaparamdam po kasi sa kausap na, oh, this is not okay. So, yeah, I just hope I think this could be more inclusive if like we acknowledge that, okay, this is okay. Parang we make a person with autism that it's really okay if we send it through chat. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
In a less condescending tone.
Yes.
Yeah. Kasi yung delivery matters
Yes.
also. Especially yun nga, as I've mentioned, if sila na yung type who have developed yung ability to like read certain changes, they would notice yung mga
Yes.
ganong shifts sa tone.
Okay, so for our last scenario, a person becomes quiet and withdrawn when there are sudden changes in schedules or plans during group activities. A peer observes. We should just not include them in activities with unpredictable schedules.
What do you think?
I personally think that this is very not inclusive because, I mean, it's already written not include them in the activities. I think, personally, I think we should still try to include them in a way, pero I think I am not quite knowledgeable enough in how to handle. So, maybe you can educate us on this, ma'am.
Parang for each answer, you will notice same patterns in my answer na we ask them. We ask them for their preference. Kasi if you're really a friend, you would know na, okay, maybe full na yung, or ubos na yung social battery niya or yung capacity niya to interact socially. And so, you don't assume things from them. You ask them, oh, I noticed you left na, parang, are you okay? Ganyan. Or we have an event again. Do you want to join? Or even just yung recognizing na, okay, for example, hindi siya just random na unpredictable, but there's something about the event or the program that's like, wala pang sure dito, for sure may magbabago sa schedule. You inform them, oh, this is happening. Parang there's a high risk na everything might be changing, maraming variables. Are you comfortable with that? In what ways do you want to participate or join? Or do you want to just try, or you can leave anytime naman na you're not comfortable anymore. So, ayun. So, parang for whatever interactions na gano'n, na you feel like, oh, ayaw naman niya, just ask them, parang, may energy ka pa ba to hang out? Or dito sa next? Kasi, yung iba-iba siya eh. Baka one time, hindi siya parang overwhelmed na by the day, may energy sila to go. It's not something na blanketed na they don't want to interact at all anymore. Kasi everyone, again, sa developmental milestone, we want that belongingness. We want connections with people.
So it all boils down talaga po to communication. So we really need to take that extra step. Like, it doesn't take that much naman po to communicate with them. So I think it really matters that I agree with personally like asking them, because sometimes they just really need the avenue to express what they really want. Okay.
All right. So thank you so much for answering in this segment. As we move forward in today's discussion, we shift our focus to something very important: how we can create spaces that are not only aware of neurodiversity, but are truly safe and supportive for neurodiverse individuals.
Yes, because beyond understanding and awareness, what really makes a difference in mental health and well-being are the environments people live, learn, and interact in every day.
Okay, so for our first question, from your experience, what does meaningful inclusion look like? Not just awareness, but actual support and acceptance.
Sige, so for this part, maybe we can view it more like for just us who encounter them in our day-to-day, not necessarily mga people with authority or professionals yet, but just in general. I think ang main point that's so important here is that we must learn to expect and accept that people are allowed to be different from you. So, dun pa lang, in general, kasi even with autism, di naman natin alam every time that someone has autism. But if we have that kind of attitude towards everyone else, whatever the reason is, autism or not, na okay, someone else thinks differently from me. Of course, iba yung actual things na affects yung rights of people, right? But in just different ways that we behave or that we prefer things, parang sana we could be more open na, okay, ganyan yung sa kanya, iba yung sa akin, and that's okay. Aside from that, or ano yung things under that kind of acceptance is providing or being a safe space for people so that in any room, no one feels judged. Parang everyone is welcome, is accepted. So that could be in classrooms, that could be in friend groups, that could be even in online spaces. And again, going back, yung providing equal opportunities. So hindi lang, so that could be in group work, in group projects, but just in general, sa job. So just because they have autism and they might have these difficulties doesn't mean they won't be able to do a good job. And I think also it's so important to give people the benefit of the doubt. And so specifically for people with autism who struggle with yung social cues minsan, parang another rin pala to misconception that I wanted to add, parang minsan they would think, oh, they're rude or parang they're brash with what they say. But sometimes they just are direct, and that's the only way that they know how to say things, and they don't mean harm. Of course, pwede naman i-communicate na, oh, I think that's a bit hurtful how you said it. But oftentimes, they don't mean harm. And so, just give people benefit of the doubt. Again, ask, what do you mean by that? Or parang have that conversation before having parang judgment agad over someone.
Yeah.
Okay. So for the last question, for individuals who may suspect that they are on the spectrum but feel unsure or unsupported, what steps can they take toward understanding themselves better?
I think yung very first would be just a very gentle reminder that being different doesn't mean that you're less than others. And it's okay, you are just different. In terms of finding support naman, it's so important that you find the support that you need. So I would really suggest seeking mental health support. So, and for that, I would say look for neurodivergent affirming therapists and psychiatrists, because unfortunately, that is still a difficult thing, even in our field. Some are not as some are not as exposed na lang to working with this population. So parang if they really don't go into that research and work to work with them, parang yung expectations natin to na, okay, ito yung neurotypical, ito yung sanay, ito dapat. So there are, if my recommendation is that if you try and then you didn't have the experience or support that you need, please try again. I know it's hard, but please don't give up. There are neurodivergent affirming therapists, doctors, psychiatrists, professionals naman everywhere.
I think it's also important to acknowledge the fact that being a third world country, not a lot of people have access to these resources. So it's really more on siguro the government prioritizing these kinds of projects as well, which I hope will happen in the next 10 years or when me and Gwyn graduate. So
Hopefully.
That's true, kasi imagine, ang konti lang nung,
Yeah.
so konti yung gagraduate na MA na psychologist but not also would go and work in the field. So sobrang konti ng therapists. And then iba-iba rin ng focus yung therapists na yon. So it could be really difficult. And to get the other kinds of support also. So ang daming changes that needs to happen na hindi lang nakasalalay dun sa individuals.
I mean, it also boils down to the fact that ang dami din pong limitations in funding, in facilities, na kailangan i-address in a more parang societal level, systemic level rather. So I hope lang na sana after natin makagraduate, hindi na very under-resourced and underrepresented yung sector na to. So
yeah, so thank you so much for letting us hear about your insights, Miss Lai. I learned so much from this conversation. I did not know actually about that women are more susceptible to being undiagnosed. I just knew that they represent other symptoms of autism. I found it really interesting kasi, I mean, the most prominent psychologists are all men. The ones we learn in theories of personality are all men. I feel like a big part of that is also because women were given opportunities really early on. It's so sad to see that discrepancy in clinical research as well. No?
And it's not just for autism, talking about neurodiversity na rin. For ADHD, it's the same case. And one thing, yun nga, I also want to add, yung masking that we talked about, I think for women also, again, so many factors that led to them parang learning how to mask better or yung societal expectation. So something that I wanted to add pala as a misconception as we talk also about therapists or psychiatrists that work with them, parang just because it's not obvious doesn't mean that they don't have it. Kasi, ayun nga, yung masking takes up so much. And if you're someone in the position, not just therapists and psychiatrists, but also as a teacher, as a school administrator, who have access to providing them accommodations or resources that they need. In this country, even, yung mga those who try to get PWD ID, it's so hard to get it if hindi masyadong obvious. So imagine a person with autism or ADHD who masks so well and who's just gonna come in the office na parang you don't see it. They have learned to function in the way that's expected of them, and then they would be parang doubted pa. And so if you have that position to influence yung direction or accommodations or resources that they have, please think twice and research more about it. Really educate yourselves about it kasi it's such a high position to be in. Yung resources na you might not want to give them could be life-changing for them.
For me naman po, actually prior to this, I've only heard about masking, but I really didn't know what masking is. And it was really, I'm really happy to be educated about masking. But when I heard about the definition, parang medyo nasadden lang ako. Because why do people with autism need to conform to us? So I think it boils down to us making it more inclusive for them rather than them adjusting for us. Kasi at the end of the day, like what you said po, we shouldn't just judge others based on face value or what we see. We should learn how to accept them as they are. Like, unang-una pa lang talaga, dapat i-remove na natin yung pagja-judge natin sa ibang tao.
I think it also takes a level of empathy.
Yes.
First of all, it's just about practicing empathy. And with that, everything follows. So you learn to communicate with them, you tend to look at them as equals as well. So yeah, Miss Lai, do you have any final message for this episode?
Siguro for those individuals with autism, and if you are having a hard time right now, living in a world that's not always designed for you, please just know that you are not alone. There are people who can provide support, who can provide help. There could be friends who could accept you and love you for who you are. There are other people like you na you can hopefully reach out to also and be surrounded with. But it might be hard, but it gets better, and don't give up. And just to everyone in general, just yung having that kind of acceptance, or not even acceptance, but just yung being so open to differences with how we think, how we behave with others.
Okay, thank you so much, Miss Lai, for joining us in today's meaningful conversation. As we close, we are reminded that neurodiversity is not something to be defined by limitations, but understood through the richness of different ways of thinking, feeling, and experiencing the world.
And we were reminded that inclusion is not a one-time effort. It is reflected in everyday actions, in the way we listen, the way we respond, and as we said kanina, the way we communicate and create space for others to exist as they are without fear of judgment or exclusion.
Okay, so as we observe World Autism Awareness Day, we hope our listeners carry this reminder: understanding is only the beginning. What truly matters is how we turn that understanding into acceptance, support, and meaningful inclusion.
Because safe spaces are not just created, they are practiced consistently through empathy and awareness.
And real change begins when differences are not just acknowledged, but respected, supported, and valued.
For updates and replays of this episode, don't forget to check the social media accounts of Radyo Katipunan 87.9 FM.
This has been Wellness Wednesdays.
Wellness that speaks to you from the body, mind to mic. Happy World's Autism Month, everyone.
See you next Wednesday.
We all want to live healthier in mind, body, and spirit. But where do we start? Sometimes, all it takes is a good conversation. Tune in to Wellness Wednesdays on Radyo Katipunan 87.9 FM. Together with experts, inspiring guests, and real stories, we explore tips you can actually use. From managing stress, to eating better, to finding balance in a busy world. Because here, we believe wellness isn't just about living longer, it's about living better. So join us, and let's make every Wednesday a step toward your healthiest self. Wellness Wednesdays, wellness that speaks to you. From the body, mind to mic. Every Wednesday on Radyo Katipunan 87.